A quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where everything seems picture-perfect on the surface, is where it all begins. The protagonist, a level-headed homeowner who follows the rules, enjoys the simple pleasure of maintaining their home without much fuss. That is, until Karen arrives on the scene. She's the self-appointed enforcer of the Homeowners Association, a woman whose power trip knows no bounds. She patrols the neighborhood armed with a clipboard, an overinflated sense of authority, and a never-ending supply of complaints. The first conflict is as absurd as it is unnecessary. Perhaps the protagonist's mailbox is too tall, or a garden gnome has allegedly thrown off the aesthetic harmony of the street. Whatever the case, Karen is on it, ready to write up violations as if she's solving the crime of the century. Karen thrives on enforcing the most ridiculous rules. She acts as if she was born to police the cul-de-sac, sending out warnings for imaginary infractions. The protagonist quickly realizes that no matter how compliant they are, Karen will find something new to nitpick. A single leaf on the driveway? Violation notice. A car parked an inch over the imaginary limit? Major offense. Karen revels in her authority, standing in the street like a sheriff surveying her domain, hands on her hips, eyebrows raised, ready to dish out justice for the crime of existing in her neighborhood. She even begins exaggerating violations to the point of absurdity, accusing homeowners of major offenses like using the wrong shade of beige for their front door. The protagonist, initially patient, attempts to reason with Karen. Surely a rational conversation can put this nonsense to rest? Not a chance. Karen doubles down, gasping in exaggerated horror at the mere suggestion that she may be wrong. She responds with even more threats of fines, more official-looking notices, and even a declaration that the homeowner is in serious danger of noncompliance. Rather than get into a direct confrontation, the protagonist decides to take a different approach, subtle retaliation. If Karen claims a simple wind chime is a nuisance, maybe replacing it with something equally ridiculous, like a Karen-shaped lawn ornament, will make a statement. As Karen continues her reign of terror, the neighborhood starts to take notice. Some neighbors egg her on, amused by the spectacle. Others, longtime victims of her over-the-top rule enforcement, whisper about their own past run-ins with her. There are stories of her reporting a cat for trespassing, taking photos of people's driveways to document invisible infractions, and even measuring grass height with a ruler. The protagonist realizes they are not alone in their frustration, and slowly, the tide begins to turn. Supporters emerge, swapping war stories about the HOA's self-appointed queen. The question lingers. How far will Karen go to maintain her control? Karen's behavior escalates to levels no one expected. She begins patrolling at odd hours, peering over fences, and making exaggerated reports of violations. Then comes her most outrageous move. She sends an HOA enforcement officer to the protagonist's home. A man shows up, wearing a fake badge and carrying a walkie-talkie, acting like he's about to carry out a high-stakes arrest. The only problem? The protagonist is the actual chief of police. With a calm demeanor, they reveal their identity, watching as Karen's so-called enforcer instantly deflates. The look on his face is priceless. Karen, who had been watching from a distance, suddenly realizes she has overstepped in a way she can't come back from. With documented evidence of Karen's excessive behavior, the protagonist takes the case to the HOA meeting. The room is tense as they lay out proof of her overreach, fake violations, made-up rules, and endless harassment. The HOA board, usually indifferent, is forced to act when confronted with undeniable facts. The turning point comes when Karen, in her desperation to defend herself, reveals just how far she has gone, admitting to violations that were never real in the first place. The board votes, and just like that, Karen is removed from her self-appointed position of power. But karma isn't done with her yet. As a final poetic twist, she is issued her own HOA violation for something as petty as her holiday decorations not meeting the approved guidelines. The neighborhood, once held hostage by her rulebook, collectively celebrates. Karen's fall from power is swift. Without her clipboard and her manufactured authority, she is reduced to just another homeowner. Some say she moved away out of embarrassment. Others claim she still lurks in the background, waiting for the day she can reclaim her rule. Whatever the case, the neighborhood finally breathes a sigh of relief. With her gone, the grass grows freely, the mailboxes stand tall, and everyone learns a valuable lesson. Some rules are meant to be followed, but when a Karen takes it too far, justice always finds a way. Karen's reign of terror begins with the kind of absurdity only an overzealous HOA enforcer could conjure. It starts small, just a casual notice about a non-compliant mailbox or a garden gnome that apparently disrupts the delicate balance of the neighborhood's aesthetic. But quickly, it escalates into full-blown, obsessive micromanagement. Karen isn't just enforcing HOA rules. She's creating new ones out of thin air, acting as if she's been granted supreme authority over every blade of grass, every parked car, and every doormat in the community. One morning, the protagonist finds a bright orange violation notice taped to their front door. Confused, they read the offense. Trash bins left out too long. A fair rule, except today was trash day, and the garbage truck hadn't even come yet. Karen, standing smugly on the sidewalk, watches as the protagonist reads the notice. When questioned, she responds in her usual dramatic flair, arms crossed, eyes squinting like a detective solving a mystery. Rules are rules, she declares, as if she's just delivered a verdict on a high-profile case. And it doesn't stop there. Karen soon starts citing the most ridiculous violations, each one more preposterous than the last. A single leaf on the driveway? Violation. A car parked an inch past an imaginary boundary line? Another violation. The worst offense yet? The protagonist's front door is the wrong shade of beige, apparently. It's too warm and disrupts the neutral harmony of the neighborhood. This is an HOA community, Karen lectures, as if she's explaining the law of the land. We have standards. The protagonist, barely holding back laughter, asks for an official ruling on the exact approved shades of beige. Karen, caught off guard, mutters something about checking the guidelines, which, unsurprisingly, do not exist. Karen's approach to enforcing these rules is equally theatrical. She doesn't just send violation notices. She delivers them like a process server in a courtroom drama. She's spotted lurking around with a tape measure, checking grass height, and inspecting mailboxes as if they're about to be seized as evidence. Neighbors whisper about the time she was seen photographing someone's Halloween decorations at dawn, taking notes in what they now call her Karen Bible. One unlucky homeowner even caught her outside his house with a magnifying glass, presumably looking for microscopic noncompliance. The protagonist, still trying to be reasonable, attempts to clarify the situation with Karen. Maybe a polite conversation can fix this? A misunderstanding, perhaps? That hope is shattered the moment Karen scoffs at their explanation. "Oh, I know the rules," she says with an air of condescension, flipping through her self-made binder of infractions. "You people think you can just do whatever you want, but not on my watch." Her watch. The protagonist finally realizes what they're up against. Karen isn't just a rule enforcer. She's a dictator in a pantsuit. The final straw comes when Karen takes things even further. She starts issuing fines she has no actual authority to enforce. She warns that failure to comply could result in serious consequences, hinting at escalating penalties that sound more like mob threats than HOA guidelines. When the protagonist demands proof of these supposed fines, Karen simply waves her hand. "I don't have time to educate you on HOA law," she sniffs, before walking away dramatically, clipboard clutched to her chest, as if she's guarding classified information. The protagonist is no longer just annoyed. They're officially in a battle. And if Karen wants a war, she's about to get one. The protagonist knows that arguing with Karen is like reasoning with a brick wall. If that brick wall had a superiority complex and an unlimited supply of violation notices. Karen thrives on confrontation, so instead of giving her the satisfaction of an angry response, the protagonist chooses a different strategy. Subtle retaliation. If Karen wants to play games, they'll play, just on their own terms. First, they attempt the diplomatic approach. They carefully explain that they've followed all the HOA rules to the letter, presenting actual HOA guidelines as proof. Karen, predictably, refuses to back down. "I am the HOA," she proclaims, puffing herself up like she's the queen of suburbia. You can't just pick and choose which rules to follow. When the protagonist calmly points out that she's making up rules that don't exist, Karen gasps as if she's just been personally attacked. Seeing that reason won't work, the protagonist decides to have some fun with Karen's nonsense. If she insists on nitpicking every little thing, then it's time to give her something to nitpick. The first act of defiance? A garden gnome dressed exactly like Karen, clad in tiny sunglasses, a clipboard, and a self-important scowl. The gnome stands proudly in the front yard. Within hours, Karen storms over, clipboard in hand, practically frothing at the mouth. "That is a violation," she shrieks. "It's mocking the HOA." The protagonist feigns innocence. "It's just a gnome," they say with a shrug. "Nothing in the rules about gnomes, is there?" Karen huffs and storms off, but not before snapping a photo for evidence. Next, the protagonist decides to follow every HOA rule to the extreme. If Karen demands the trash bins be pulled in immediately after pickup, they set a timer and wheel them in within seconds of the truck leaving. If Karen wants a perfect lawn, they measure their grass height to comply with the exact regulation, down to the millimeter. One neighbor jokes that they saw the protagonist out at midnight with a flashlight and a ruler, trimming their lawn with scissors. The exaggerated compliance drives Karen insane. She can't find a single thing wrong, which, to her, is the worst possible outcome. Realizing she's losing control, Karen doubles down. She fabricates more complaints, claiming the protagonist's house is too bright at night because of their porch light, or that their doorbell sound is disruptive to the neighborhood's peace. The protagonist responds by installing solar-powered pathway lights. Ones that change color one night. The whole front yard glows bright pink. It's HOA compliant, but just obnoxious enough to make Karen's blood pressure spike. Despite the ridiculousness of the situation, the protagonist remains outwardly polite. Every time Karen marches over, they greet her with a smile. Every notice she delivers is framed and displayed on the fridge like a trophy. Neighbors begin noticing the battle and quietly choosing sides. Some find Karen's antics entertaining and stir the pot, whispering things like, "Did you hear? She's planning a stakeout for the next violation." Others, fed up with her overreach, begin cheering for the protagonist. One neighbor, Tom, even shares his own Karen horror story. "She once issued me a formal warning for my cat trespassing on her lawn. My indoor cat." Karen, sensing that she's no longer in full control, gets desperate. The violations become even more absurd. The protagonist starts keeping records, screenshots, photos, even videos of Karen measuring their lawn, whispering into her phone like she's conducting a secret surveillance operation. At this point, it's not just about personal annoyance. It's about exposing Karen for what she really is, a power-hungry, rule-inventing menace. The protagonist doesn't just want to win. They want Karen's reign of terror to end, and they're about to get their chance. The neighborhood, once a quiet and peaceful place, has now become a battleground of passive-aggressive warfare. Karen's obsessive HOA enforcement has been a nuisance for years. But now that the protagonist has become her primary target, the entire community is watching. Some find the drama hilarious, others are outraged, and a few secretly enjoy the chaos. The divide between pro-Karen enforcers and fed-up homeowners grows wider every day. At first, the neighbors are hesitant to get involved. No one wants to be the next target of Karen's wrath, and she has a long history of making life miserable for anyone who crosses her. But as the protagonist's battle with her escalates, the neighborhood starts whispering. People gossip on driveways, at mailboxes, even in the grocery store. "Did you see what she did yesterday?" someone mutters. "I heard she called in a complaint about a garden gnome. She measured someone's lawn at 6 a.m. I swear I saw her hiding in the bushes, writing notes." One night, Tom from next door stops by the protagonist's house, holding a cup of coffee and shaking his head. "You're the latest victim," he says. "She's been doing this for years." Tom shares his own Karen horror story asterisk. She once issued a formal violation notice because his cat allegedly trespassed on her lawn, his indoor cat. Another neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, chimes in. "She wrote me up for leaving my Christmas lights up until January 3 RD. Someone else mutters. "She took pictures of my Halloween decorations and sent them to the HOA board in September." Slowly but surely, the neighborhood starts turning against Karen. More people begin openly defying her ridiculous rules. One homeowner, inspired by the protagonist's Karen gnome, puts up an entire row of gnomes, each one dressed in a tiny HOA uniform. Another paints their door the exact same offensive shade of beige that Karen once called a violation. Someone else starts an anonymous neighborhood email chain where people share their favorite Karen stories and plot ways to fight back. Even the people who once supported Karen start distancing themselves. At the last HOA meeting, one of her closest allies, a woman named Linda, finally has enough. "Karen, maybe you should focus on your own house instead of everyone else's," she snaps. Karen's face turns red as the room murmurs in agreement. The once fearsome HOA enforcer is now losing control. But Karen isn't about to go down without a fight. She doubles down on her enforcement, sending out even more violation notices, trying desperately to reassert her dominance. The neighborhood, however, is no longer intimidated. Instead of responding with fear, they start laughing at her. One day, an anonymous homeowner prints custom bumper stickers that say official HOA violation. Soon, people are sticking them on their own cars, mailboxes, and even Karen's own fence when she storms into the HOA meeting demanding to know who's responsible. No one confesses. The entire room just smiles. It's clear now. Karen is losing her grip, and the protagonist, along with the entire neighborhood, is ready to deliver the final blow. Karen, sensing her authority slipping through her fingers, goes into full meltdown mode, the subtle defiance of the neighborhood, the protagonist's refusal to back down, and the fact that people are now mocking her instead of fearing her. It's all too much. She doubles down on her HOA crusade, but in doing so, she overplays her hand. First, she starts trespassing late at night. Neighbors spot her measuring grass with a ruler under the glow of a street lamp. I swear she was whispering to herself, Tom from next door reports. She had a notepad and everything. A security camera even catches her standing in someone's driveway, scrutinizing their house as if she's solving a crime. The footage makes the rounds in the neighborhood group chat, and people start calling her the HOA detective. Then, she begins filing blatantly fake complaints. One homeowner receives a violation notice for having an unauthorized pet. The problem? They don't even own a pet. Another gets a warning about an improperly parked vehicle. When they don't even have a car, it becomes obvious that Karen is fabricating violations just to prove she's still in charge. The protagonist, sensing that Karen is spiraling, starts gathering evidence. Every ridiculous violation, every complaint, and every instance of Karen overstepping her authority is documented, time-stamped, and organized at this point. It's not just about fighting off a petty HOA tyrant. It's about exposing Karen for what she really is. The final straw comes when Karen makes her boldest move yet. In a last-ditch effort to intimidate the protagonist, she sends an HOA enforcement officer to their house. It's a man in a cheap polo shirt, wearing a fake badge and carrying a clipboard like it's a weapon. He knocks on the door with the confidence of a SWAT team leader, claiming that the protagonist is in serious violation of HOA policies and that further action may be necessary. The protagonist, calmly amused, listens to the entire speech. Then, with a slow smile, they ask, "Do you even know who I am?" The man blinks. Karen is standing a few feet away, arms crossed, looking smug. That's when the protagonist pulls out their actual badge. Because, as it turns out, they aren't just any homeowner. They're the chief of police. Karen's face drains of color, the so-called HOA enforcer stammers, then immediately turns around and walks away. Karen, caught in her own trap, stands there frozen. She opens her mouth to protest, but no words come out. She knows she's been completely, utterly destroyed. At the next HOA meeting, the protagonist presents their evidence. A full-on PowerPoint presentation lays out Karen's excessive rule enforcement, fake violations, trespassing, and outright harassment. The HOA board, usually passive, can't ignore the overwhelming proof. The room is silent as Karen, flustered and red-faced, tries to defend herself. "I was just trying to uphold the community's standards," she sputters. "Someone has to enforce the rules." But the board isn't having it. One member finally speaks up. "Karen, you're out." The vote is unanimous. Karen is removed from her position. But the cherry on top? She's issued a violation notice of her own. Her house, it turns out, is in violation of HOA policy. The crime? An unapproved holiday wreath on her front door. For the first time ever, Karen is speechless. The neighborhood erupts into silent, victorious smiles. Karen's reign is officially over. Karen's downfall is swift and satisfying. The moment the HOA board votes her out, the entire neighborhood lets out a collective sigh of relief. No more ridiculous violation notices. No more clipboard patrols. No more fear of stepping outside, only to be confronted about the angle of your mailbox. The protagonist, still reveling in their victory, watches as Karen sits there, stunned into silence. The best part? Sweet, poetic justice. As Karen gets up to storm out of the meeting, the HOA president stops her. "Before you go," he says, flipping through some papers, "we actually have a matter to discuss regarding your property." The room falls silent. Karen blinks. And then comes the ultimate twist. Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of the rules, the self-proclaimed guardian of HOA policies, is actually in violation of the very rules she so aggressively imposed on others. Her own house is non-compliant. The crime? An unapproved holiday wreath on her front door. The neighborhood sits in stunned silence for half a second. And then, someone laughs, a small chuckle at first, but soon, the entire room is trying not to burst out laughing. Karen, for the first time ever, has no response. Her mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air, her face turning a deep shade of red. That's ridiculous, she sputters. That's not a real rule. The HOA president smirks. Oh, but rules are rules, Karen. She glares at the protagonist, knowing exactly where this is coming from. But there's nothing she can do. She either removes the wreath or faces a fine, her own game, turned against her. The neighborhood watches gleefully as Karen, now stripped of her fake power, is forced to walk out of the meeting in total defeat. She slams her clipboard against her side as she leaves, but nobody cares. And just like that, her reign of terror is over. The following days are pure bliss. People start doing the little things they were once too afraid to. ***, leaving their trash bins out an extra hour. Decorating their porches however they please, ***, and finally breathing freely in their own homes. The protagonist walks outside, coffee in hand, and sees a row of garden gnomes proudly displayed in multiple yards. The neighborhood has collectively decided to turn Karen's most hated decoration into a symbol of resistance. One night, someone even hangs colorful Christmas lights on their fence. ***, directly facing Karen's house, ***, a small, harmless act of rebellion. But one that sends a clear message. The protagonist watches from their porch and simply smiles. The final fate of Karen remains uncertain. Some say she quietly packed up and moved away, unable to handle the humiliation. Others claim she's still lurking, too bitter to leave but too embarrassed to show her face. Either way, she's done. And the neighborhood? Peaceful once again. The protagonist takes one last look at their perfectly compliant, totally non-controversial front yard, shakes their head and mutters, "Well, that was fun."